How you doing? I'm Tim. This is Egg Chasers, and hopefully this is the video that's going to earn your subscription, if I haven't already. As we look ahead to the Six Nations 2023, Steve Borthwick's first squad for England is only days away now. And so I'm looking at who the runners and riders are in various positions. This video, looking at the front row. The back row is already in the video feed, so hit subscribe, go and have a look at that. And as you're going through this, I'm trying to give you my thoughts about what I would do, what I anticipate Steve Borthwick may do, and I want to know your comments. What would you do? Who would be the likely 9 players that would make the cut for your England front row spots for the Six Nations coming up? 3 in each position. So yeah, let's not waste any more time and let me get into it. Starting with loose head prop. Now, I'm going to miss some potential contenders off of this. I've just picked 6 in each position. There will be others. For example, I have an apology to make to Lewis Ludlow and to Callum Chick for leaving them out of the back row discussion. It was an oversight on my part. I apologise to both of those gentlemen who I may well see at a Premiership ground soon. So sorry. But yeah, so I will miss people. Feel free to flag that up if you like, but I've just tried to pick who I think are the likeliest contenders. For loose head prop, I've got that as Joe Marler, Valrapava Ruskin, Mako Vunipola, Bevan Rodd, Ellis Genge, Alec Hepburn. Now, I don't know the extent of Valrapava Ruskin's injury. I really hope it's only a short-term one. I think he's going to be one of the new faces in Steve Borthwick's squad. He's playing that well this season for Gloucester. Alec Hepburn, I think, is the one that drops off. And then it's a really tough decision, and it's all going to be on how is Steve Borthwick going to want to set up his team and play. What characteristics is he looking for? What characters is he looking for? And I think you've got a bit of a distinction to make between some of the players. I think they're all round very good. I think Bevan Rodd is a real modern type of player. I really like him. I really do. His handling skills are exceptional, as are Mako Vunipola's as well. But I don't know whether it's just the scars of the 2019 World Cup final or even Eddie Jones's last game in charge, that debacle at Twickenham against South Africa. But I just want these front row players to give me a solid set piece. And I think that might be where Steve Borthwick's head is at. Lay those solid foundations and build from there. And with that in mind, the 2 that I drop out are, as brilliant a players as they are, Bevan Rodd and Mako Vunipola. Both great players. And actually, I can see one of those 2, potentially both, I guess, but I can definitely see one of those 2 being in Steve Borthwick's England squad, because the question is, will Steve Borthwick like Joe Marler enough to embrace everything that there is about Joe Marler? Big character. I wonder if Steve Borthwick might not, and he might leave Joe Marler out for the reason that, in my mind, Joe Marler might be the 3rd choice loose head prop. And as the 3rd choice loose head prop, Steve Borthwick may assess it and say, do I need everything else that comes with Joe Marler? I like him as a character personally. I know he's a Marmite for some people. So I could see Steve Borthwick not picking Joe Marler and taking Mako Vunipola or Bevan Rodd instead. Those would be my 3. Joe Marler's that good at scrummaging. I want him in. Ellis Genge is just an absolute wrecking ball. So obviously he's going to be in. Potential captain, maybe. Although, if I were picking the starting 15 in the match day 23, Valrapava Ruskin would be my starting loosehead prop. I really hope he's fit. I think he's that good. Best loosehead prop in England this season. The biggest legs I've ever seen. He's a 120-odd kg man. The sort of guy you could imagine going toe-to-toe with France Malherbe or whichever one of the tight head props, Cyril Bay, or whichever tight head prop starts for France. I like Valrapava Ruskin a lot. Time is running out to bed him into the England side. I think this is the moment. With Ellis Genge, and remember, international props play best part of half a game each anyway, and you could quite easily swap it round starting and off the bench. I think Ellis Genge, for 35 minutes when there's tired bodies on the field, could be absolute dynamite. So those would be my 2, and that would be my loosehead prop squad selection. Your thoughts in the comments. What are you saying about that? Agree, disagree? Other contenders? Let's move on to tight head. And again, Aaron Painter, Harry Williams are a couple of names. There's others I could have picked as well. I've just gone with 6. Kyle Sinclair, Will Stewart, who I know got injured in the autumn internationals, didn't he? Was it in that last game against South Africa? Elbow injury. I hope he's back because he looked great. Especially in that comeback against New Zealand, obviously. Joe Hayes, those 3 on the top were the incumbents in the England squad in the autumn. The bottom row are players that have, well, in the case of Trevor Davison and Dan Cole, worn the England shirt at some point in recent years. Fraser Balmain. I don't know if he has. Maybe he had a game against USA or something like that, but it's such a shame that he's injured, because Fraser Balmain would be in my England squad were he fit. He's having a brilliant season at Gloucester, or was until he was injured. A big loss for them, and I really hope he hasn't lost his opportunity with it, because he's just a fantastic player. When you look at that, it's tough to call, which is amazing. I can't believe I'm saying this about Kyle Sinclair. I think potentially Kyle Sinclair could miss out on the England squad because of those absolute fundamentals that Steve Borthwick is going to have as a non-negotiable. The set piece has to be solid. Kyle Sinclair is a fantastic player, but I just want to see him dominating for Bristol and then translating that to the international arena. And with that in mind, maybe Steve Borthwick might rest him and just go for a set-piece option. I think if he were fit, the one player that would be almost guaranteed a place in the England squad would be Will Stewart. Remains to be seen if he is fit. I know he was out for a couple of months, I think they said, which means he should be coming back soon. Hopefully that is the case. We'll see if he's involved in any of the Bath games over the European weeks. It's important for him. But if he was the case, I would pick Will Stewart. And as for the other two, I would have Fraser Balmain as another tight head prop. But with the ones that are fit and available, those are the three that I'm going with. Maybe a controversial selection not to pick Kyle Sinclair, not because I don't think he's great. He is. I just want to go and see him dominate for Bristol. And then, when he's doing that, then step up to the international arena. For now, Trevor Davison for Newcastle, their set piece is solid. And they spend well under the salary cap. So, there's bigger names and bigger men that they could pick, but they are technically really, really good. In fact, I think they even had a 100% set piece against Leicester with Dan Cole playing on the opposite team. And Dan Cole would be the one that I would bring in as well. When you look back at that 2019 World Cup, the penalties, it has to be said, I think Dan Cole got a bad rap and maybe carried the can a little bit too much more so than he deserved to in that World Cup final in 2019, because the penalties weren't really against him on his side of the scrum. And he's playing brilliantly for Leicester. And without Fraser Balmain and with Kyle Sinclair not in top form, those would be my three, because I just want a solid set piece. Give me a solid set piece. Will Stewart, I think, may be injured. We will see. That's tight head prop. What are you saying on that? As we move on to hooker, and I've deliberately put Jamie George top and centre on his own because injuries to Luke Cowan-Dickie and Jack Singleton mean that he's the only one of the incumbent England squad that is going to be available for the Six Nations. So you're either going to see... Well, you're going to see a couple of faces that have been on the periphery in recent times. Those would have been the three, wouldn't they? But that's where we are. As it happens, I think there'll be two players picked from these four guys. Tom Dunn as well from Bath. In fact, really, he's picking two from three other guys. Because Harry Thacker, I love. The stocky little dumper truck, as Nick Mullins called him. I think he's brilliant. But I think he's going to pick from these guys. And again, set piece superiority. It's got to be a hooker that is absolutely on the money with their arrows and a good scrummaging hooker. Jamie George ticks those boxes. I think George McGuigan is the most like Jamie George that we have in the hooker position. Jack Walker and Jamie Blameyer, they both offer they play a little bit more like back row players in that hooker position. For that reason, I think it will be Jamie George, George McGuigan, and one of those two. If I was guessing, I'd say Steve Borthwick will go with Jack Walker. I'd probably edge for Jamie Blameyer. Those would be my three. And probably on a matchday squad, it would be... in fact, I don't really mind. You could go for a carbon copy of Jamie George and get George McGuigan in. That would be fine. Or someone who adds a little bit more something around the park with Jack Walker or Jamie Blameyer. And that is my 9 front row options. I'm fascinated to see what Steve Borthwick does. If he does make some of those cuts, I mean, it would have been unthinkable a couple of years ago that Kyle Sinclair would be... You just assumed he would be a shoo-in. And I still think he could and probably will be come World Cup time. Does he deserve it on merit right now? Got a question mark there. Will Steve Borthwick? We'll see. Leave your comments, hit subscribe, and I will see you on the next video.